In this podcast episode, Diane Hennacy, a Harvard and Johns Hopkins trained neuropsychiatrist, shares her unconventional journey from mainstream neuroscience and psychiatry into the study of extrasensory perception, ESP, telepathy, savant syndrome, and the deeper mysteries of consciousness. She discusses her encounter with a psychic patient at Harvard, her exploration of parapsychology, the neuroscience behind memory and perception, the extraordinary abilities of autistic savants, and the potential biological and quantum bases of consciousness. She also delves into the intersection of spirituality, technology's impact on human cognition, and ongoing scientific research into phenomena often dismissed by academia. Diane's entrance into investigating psychic phenomena began unexpectedly during her tenure as a psychiatrist at Harvard. Called in to evaluate a hospital patient wanting to leave against medical advice, she encountered a woman who claimed to be psychic and to see ghosts. Despite initial skepticism, Diane was astonished when the patient accurately described personal details about Diane's life and predicted future events that eventually came to pass. This experience challenged Diane's scientific worldview and sparked her interest in investigating these taboo topics further, even though mainstream psychiatry often dismissed such claims as signs of psychosis. Diane recounts that while at Harvard, she was closely connected to notable figures like John Mack, a psychiatrist famous for his controversial research on alien abduction phenomena. Although she was initially unaware of the full scope of his work, she respected his intellect and shared concerns about nuclear war with him. Mack's experiences highlighted the stigma and institutional pushback faced by researchers addressing anomalous human experiences, as Harvard attempted to revoke his tenure due to the unconventional nature of his studies and media exposure. These observations further informed Diane's understanding of the academic resistance toward parapsychological research. Diane's academic path began with an ambition to become a neurosurgeon during medical school at Johns Hopkins. Fascinated by human consciousness and brain function, she initially engaged in neurophysiological research involving microelectrodes in simpler organisms and neurosurgical procedures such as awake brain mapping. She knew prominent figures like Ben Carson and witnessed historic surgeries like the separation of conjoined twins. However, during her psychiatry rotations, she grew enamored with neuropsychiatry's holistic approach, an intersection of neurology, psychiatry, and behavioral neuroscience, led by the department chair, Paul McHugh. This approach considered biological, psychological, and sociological factors and emphasized understanding brain-behavior relationships in mental health. Diane explains critical brain structures involved in memory, such as the hippocampus, the archicortex, and its role in converting short-term to long-term memories and spatial navigation. She highlights discoveries like Nobel-winning research identifying the brain's internal GPS, comprising grid and place cells that map physical space, functions highly relevant not only to navigation, but potentially to cognition and dreaming. The hippocampus's association with theta-frequency brainwaves, score 7 Hz, correlates with dreaming and has been linked in studies to psychic phenomena such as remote viewing. She recounts cases of severe hippocampal damage resulting from oxygen deprivation, underscoring the structure's vitality for memory formation, illustrated by the poignant experience of a patient with day-to-day memory loss after strangulation trauma. Diane's interest deepened into the study of autistic savants, individuals with autism spectrum disorder who manifest exceptional skills in areas like mathematics or music without formal training. Encounters with case studies, such as Oliver Sacks's report on autistic twins reciting consecutive prime numbers far beyond typical human capacity, revealed puzzling abilities that defy conventional neurological explanation. These savants often report perceiving answers and complex information as visualized forms floating in space, rather than through deliberate calculation. The overlap between savant skills and non-local information processing led Diane to hypothesize that studying these individuals could unlock insights into consciousness and ESP. Diane correlates savant talents mainly with the brain's right hemisphere, which governs gestalt thinking, pattern recognition, and visual spatial processing, contrasting with the analytic and verbal left hemisphere typically dominant in waking consciousness and Western education. Autistic individuals frequently show left hemispheric deficits while exhibiting enhanced right hemispheric functions, implying a hybrid or alternate neurocognitive profile. She observes that during dreaming or trance states, when left hemisphere expectations relax, access to intuitive and psychic-like information increases. This also relates to meditative and hypnotic states, where unconscious or deeply encoded information becomes accessible. The scientific community's skepticism toward ESP and related phenomena lies partly in challenges related to replicability, measurement, and the presence of anecdotal evidence. However, Diane points out that many parapsychological studies employ rigorous methodologies, such as analyzing Zener card test results beyond random chance and conducting meta-analyses showing statistically significant effects. Still, such data rarely convinces mainstream science, and the bar for proof is perpetually raised. Investigating autistic savants with consistent high-accuracy results exceeding chance rates offers stronger evidence. Diane describes studies with a savant named Haley, who demonstrated extraordinary telepathic and mathematical capabilities under controlled conditions, rare yet illuminating. Diane expands the discussion into emerging theories of consciousness involving brain structures beyond neurons, particularly astrocytes and microtubules, cellular components once overlooked in neuroscience. These microscopic structures may play roles in quantum processes that help explain cognitive phenomena and information processing beyond classical neurobiology. She references collaborations with researchers like Stuart Hameroff, who propose microtubules as substrates for consciousness. This systemic view contrasts with focusing solely on action potentials and neurotransmitters, suggesting a more integrated and complex hardware underlying mental phenomena. Diane sees great potential in designing experiments to further probe these aspects of brain function. The conversation also touches on cutting-edge neurological treatments using low-intensity ultrasound and near-infrared light for neuromodulation and neurodegenerative conditions like Alzheimer's disease. Diane explains how ultrasound targets specific brain regions to alter neuronal function non-invasively, while nasal infrared probes offer a novel delivery path bypassing the skull's barriers. Anecdotal patient improvements fuel optimism, though insurance coverage and accessibility remain challenges. The discussion includes insights on red and infrared light therapies promoting mitochondrial health, highlighting the interplay between biological light exposure and brain function. These emerging modalities broaden the horizons of neurological treatment beyond pharmacology. Diane reflects on spirituality, religious archetypes, and the universal motifs recurring across cultures, such as Jesus and Krishna, flood myths, and near-death experiences. She notes that psychic and afterlife experiences often reflect the cultural background of the experiencer, suggesting archetypal templates shape individual perceptions of profound phenomena. Consciousness may thus interface with a vast informational or energetic field, which humans interpret through symbols and stories familiar to their upbringing. This shared symbolism serves as a bridge to understanding transcendent experiences without reducing them strictly to cultural constructs. The brain functions as a filter, honing in on select sensory inputs vital for survival while excluding a vast amount of environmental information. Phenomena like synesthesia, common in autistic individuals in psychedelic states, demonstrate cross-modal sensory blending that expands perception. Diane draws parallels between autistic sensory experiences and those induced by substances like DMT or ayahuasca, suggesting altered gating of sensory information. This opens access to non-local or normally imperceptible data streams, providing a biological basis for some paranormal experiences. Whether through innate neurodivergence or induced states, the capacity to tune in beyond ordinary senses illuminates new facets of reality. Throughout the discussion, Diane highlights the institutional resistance and stigma surrounding ESP and related research. Psychiatry often pathologizes psychic claims as symptoms of mental illness, complicating open inquiry. Similarly, academic rejection can deter researchers, and the risk of association with fraud or pseudoscience discourages serious study. Nevertheless, parents and families of autistic individuals reporting psychic abilities often seek validation and understanding, underscoring the importance of compassionate, scientifically rigorous exploration. Diane advocates for breaking down rigid paradigms and embracing interdisciplinary methods to better grasp these contested phenomena. Diane and the host contemplate the shifting landscape of human cognition influenced by education systems, technology, and societal changes. Modern schooling tends to emphasize left hemisphere analytical skills and heavily rely on digital technologies, contributing to diminished creativity and intuition. Conversely, growing interest in homeschooling, right-brain arts education, and nature immersion reflect a desire to rebalance cognitive modes and restore innate human potentials. Moreover, the podcast explores how technology can create social isolation and sensory overload, potentially atrophying latent psychic or intuitive faculties that may have been more prevalent in ancient human cultures. The conversation turns speculative, exploring evidence suggesting early humans possessed advanced technological and cognitive abilities now lost or mysterious to modern science. Structures like the Antikythera mechanism demonstrate sophisticated astronomical knowledge thousands of years ago, hinting at deeper wisdom encoded in ancient artifacts and spiritual traditions. Events such as planetary disasters or cataclysms may have wiped out previous civilizations, necessitating restart and rediscovery of knowledge. Diane muses on how ancient people might have harnessed psychic or consciousness-based technologies, much like the abilities reported in autistic savants today. Diane outlines her goals for advancing research in ESP, telepathy, precognition, and mediumship, especially through studying autistic individuals who reliably exhibit these capabilities. She seeks to document precognitive events systematically, explore biochemical correlates like endogenous DMT, and establish protocols for validating mediumistic communication, deployed beyond simple cold reading techniques. She also expresses interest in collaborations with neuroscientists, physicists, and parapsychologists to deepen understanding of consciousness-related phenomena. The conversation highlights the need for rigorous, open-minded scientific inquiry, coupled with sensitivity to lived experiences. The latter part of the episode explores how subtle sensory cues, especially smell, play critical biological and evolutionary roles, shaping human attraction and bonding through pheromones and immune system compatibility. The sense of smell connects directly to the limbic system, influencing emotions and memory more potently than other senses. Diane references unique individuals with extraordinary olfactory abilities, such as those detecting Parkinson's disease by scent years before diagnosis. This biological sensitivity underscores the complexity of human perception and intimates that much remains hidden from our conscious awareness. The discussion touches on the societal effects of technology altering human interaction patterns. The decline in in-person socialization, rise of homeschooling, and dependence on screens contribute to altered cognitive and emotional development. Diane foresees divergent paths emerging between those embracing biohacking and technological integration and others seeking reconnection with nature, community, and intuitive capacities. Both orientations reflect different responses to the challenges of contemporary life, with implications for the future evolution of consciousness and the human species. Finally, the episode addresses the role of sensory gating, the brain's capacity to filter incoming stimuli, in both pathological and altered states. Psychedelic compounds like DMT modulate sensory gating to allow expanded awareness of information outside normal perception, closely mirroring the sensory realities reported by autistic individuals with synesthesia and telepathic experiences. These neurochemical and electrophysiological modulations offer fertile ground for studying how consciousness interfaces with the informational substrate of reality, potentially bridging neuroscience with parapsychology and spiritual traditions. Diane Hennacy hosts a personal website and a nonprofit research institute promoting the scientific investigation of ESP and related phenomena. Interested listeners can connect with her work and sign up for newsletters via darhennessy.com and hennessyinstitute.org, where ongoing projects and findings are shared to further this interdisciplinary field.